I'm Eva. Standing in the cold, harsh light of the bank's conference room, I stared at my brother Ethan. His face paled as I walked in, a stark contrast to the confident smirk he'd worn just moments before. The room fell silent, and I knew the tables had turned. It all started 5 weeks ago when our father, Henry Thompson, passed away on a frigid night. Dad was a man of integrity, a hard worker who built Thompson Cold Chain Logistics from the ground up. He started with a single refrigerated truck and a dream, believing that reliability in transporting temperature-sensitive goods was the key to success. I grew up in the business. Since I was 18, I'd been by Dad's side, learning the ropes. By 25, I was handling major client accounts and overseeing the daily operations. I knew every nook and cranny of the company, from the warehouse to the delivery routes. Ethan, on the other hand, had a different path. He worked in finance in the city, dealing with numbers and investments. When Dad thought his financial expertise could help modernize the company, Ethan came back. He was charming, able to spin any situation to his advantage. But I always sensed there was more to him than met the eye. After Dad's passing, the will was read in a small, stuffy room above the main warehouse. The lawyer announced that I had 55% control of the company, while Ethan got 45% with profit rights but no final say in operations. Ethan scoffed, insisting it was a mistake. But the lawyer assured us that Dad's wishes were clear and legal. In the days that followed, Ethan started to show his true colors. He called me every night, telling me I was in over my head. He said lenders respected him more and that clients would feel more secure with a man in charge. I brushed off his suggestions, determined to honor Dad's trust. One afternoon, he invited me to lunch at an upscale restaurant. He slid a folder across the table, proposing that I transfer voting control to him for 5 years. He promised me a good salary and a role in operations, claiming it was for the company's stability. I was appalled. Dad had given me control for a reason, and I wasn't about to give it away. A few days later, I discovered that someone had accessed my company email and sent messages to a competitor, suggesting I was considering selling the business. When I confronted Ethan, he simply shrugged it off, saying stress was getting to me. Then, a driver named Jake came to my office, looking terrified. He told me that a temperature log from a medical shipment had been altered. The system showed it was my credentials that uploaded the changed file. I knew immediately that Ethan was behind it. That evening, Ethan called me and said he had found the original temperature logs in Dad's old files at the abandoned repair depot on the outskirts of town. He sounded worried, insisting I needed to see them before the audit team arrived. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. As I drove to the depot just before sunset, I had a sinking feeling. The place was surrounded by a chain-link fence, and the snowbanks were dirty with road salt. Ethan's car was parked outside, the engine running. He stepped out, looking like he was going to a business meeting rather than an old, forgotten place. Inside the small office, he handed me a thick file. As I looked through it, I saw forged approval forms with my name and initials, and a statement claiming I had made dangerous decisions. I knew it was all fake, but Ethan insisted it looked real. He then showed me a letter from a supposed corporate physician, stating that I was emotionally unstable and should step away from my responsibilities. I was furious. He was trying to have me declared unfit to run the company. He placed a temporary transfer of voting authority on the desk, highlighting my signature line in yellow. He said signing it would make all the compliance issues go away and that he could handle the acquisition offers. I realized then that he had been planning to sell the company all along. When I reached for my phone to call the police, he grabbed my wrist and took it from me. I demanded it back, but he just smiled coldly. He then told me the original files were in the garage, in a box in Dad's old truck. Reluctantly, I followed him. The garage was a long, steel building. As soon as I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned to see the lock click into place. Ethan's voice came through the door, telling me I had until the next afternoon to reconsider. I was trapped. No phone, no keys, no heat, and no one knew where I was. The first few hours, I was filled with anger. I banged on the door, kicked it, but it wouldn't budge. Dad had installed that door years ago after a break-in, and it was solid. As the hours passed, the cold started to seep in. I found some old supplies in the garage, a tarp, a pair of gloves, a flashlight with no batteries, and a box of hand warmers. I ate a stale peppermint I found in a drawer just to have something in my stomach. I walked in circles around the garage to keep warm. Every now and then, I'd try the door again, not because I thought it would open, but because I refused to give up. Around dawn, I was shivering uncontrollably. I climbed into Dad's old truck, hoping to find some shelter. That's when I discovered a two-way radio under the dashboard. It was an old system Dad had installed after a cell outage stranded drivers during a snowstorm. My hands were shaking so much that it was hard to turn on the radio. When it finally crackled to life, I called for help. After what felt like an eternity, a woman's voice came through the static. It was Lily, an old employee who had been fired after a missing medical shipment. I had believed the evidence against her at the time, but now, her voice was my lifeline. I told her everything, the fake logs, the transfer papers, and Ethan's plan to steal the company. She said she had been waiting for someone to expose Ethan's schemes. She promised to come with help. Just as the radio's battery died, I heard the sound of tires outside. Then, I heard voices and the sound of metal cutters. The door opened, and daylight flooded in. Lily stood there with a police officer, looking at me with a mix of shock and anger. We didn't waste any time. Lily had been building a case against Ethan for months. She had evidence of shell companies, manipulated records, and proof that he had framed her. We went to the main warehouse, where I authorized access to the company's archives. We found the original temperature logs and more evidence of Ethan's fraud. When we arrived at the bank for the emergency transfer meeting, Ethan was shocked to see me. The investigator laid out all the evidence, and Ethan's mask finally cracked. He tried to defend himself, but it was too late. Northern Harbor Freight, the potential buyer, withdrew from the deal. The bank suspended the transfer documents, and our lawyer refused to recognize Ethan's authority. In the end, Ethan was arrested. The story hit the news, and the public was appalled. Ethan faced charges of unlawful imprisonment, corporate fraud, forgery, and more. He tried to claim he was panicked, but the prosecutor presented a clear timeline of his long-term schemes. 3 months later, Ethan accepted a plea deal, 14 years in prison, restitution to the company and Lily, and a permanent ban from holding financial authority in related companies. Lily came back to the company as the director of compliance. We rebuilt the company, implementing new policies to prevent such fraud in the future. Some clients left during the scandal, but many returned when they saw we were committed to transparency. What I learned from this ordeal is that family should not be a weapon. Love must be based on respect, and loyalty must be rooted in truth. I also learned to trust my instincts and never be afraid to seek help. Ethan wanted to silence me, but instead, I found my voice and fought back.